alert, but official from space station says he doesn't think they want war since its leaders are aboard space station with him. 7:58, Captain comes to space station to meet the Klingon. 7:59, Klingons of the aliens claim right for shore leave on space station. They have no required facilities aboard their spaceship. 760, Captain grants them shore leave for 12 officers at a time only on space station. 761, space station official complains to Captain to have so many enemy officers around such critical cargo. Captain says there is only a dozen of officers and he assigns a security officer for each enemy officer. 762, interplanetary merchant sells tribbles to barkeeper who sells them to public as pets. 763, these little adorable creatures are a complete mystery and have a tranquilizing effect on human nervous system. Vulcan alien says he is immune from it, so he says. 764, merchant wants to sell more but finds out they multiply quickly, so storekeeper does not order any more units. 765, the little creatures start appearing everywhere. 766, doctor wants to analyze one of them to see what makes them tick without hurting it. 767, in bar, merchant finds out that the simple creatures don't like the alien Klingons and get distressed and scream. The feeling is mutual between the Klingons and the tribbles. 768, doctor says half of creature's metabolism is geared for reproduction. 769, chief engineer is busy reading technical journals. Captain tells him to relax. He says he is relaxing. Captain tells him to go rest on space station and overview the other officers to ensure no problem arises. 770, humans and alien Klingons hang around the bar and drink alcohol. 771, one Klingon alien criticizes the humans and is ignored. Then he criticizes the captain of the Earth vessel. An officer of the human ship wants to attack him for that, but the chief engineer tells him to sit down. We can take a few insults. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. Still, he calls the captain a dictator, a person with delusions of godhood, etc. And the chief engineer holds back his ensign officer. Finally, the Klingon alien says that the Enterprise should be hauling garbage. Chief engineer asks him to rephrase that. So he says, yes, it should be hauled away as garbage. The chief engineer stands up and slugs the Klingon alien officer on the chin, and they all begin fighting, have a brawl on the space station. 772, soon human security team comes and breaks up the brawl. 773, captain lines up the shore leave team and asks who started. They pretend they don't know, so all are confined to quarters. 774, captain asked chief engineer to stay behind since he was in charge. Latter finally admits that he threw the first punch, which is surprising. 775, captain asks why. At first it seemed it was because he was insulted, but really it was because the spaceship was insulted. 776, captain suspends shore leave. 776, captain suspends shore leave privileges. 777, captain discovers the creatures can go through vents, and the grain facility on space station has vents, which is a danger. 778, captain quickly goes to space station to check on the grain. 779, the grain compartment is open and is full of those creatures. They have forgotten it and were eating the grain. 780. Space station official is very angry and says he'll hold the captain responsible, and he is. 781. They may lose planet needing the grain, they may lose the planet that needs the grain to the Klingon aliens as a result. 782. Captain finds out that many of the creatures are dead or are dying. 783. Doctor says the creatures are born pregnant. 784. Doctor says stop feeding creatures and they stop multiplying. They multiply very quickly. 75. Doctor says that the creatures were poisoned because the grain was poisoned. You eat and yet you never feel satiated. You keep eating and die. 786. Klingons, aliens complain few poor treatment. Klingon aliens complain for poor treatments by the humans. 787. Merchant leaves with Tribbles when a human walks in and Tribbles takes a fit. Captain is surprised. Merchant says this only happened before at the bar. We're near Klingons. Captain sees they like everyone there except Klingon. Doctor checks the so-called human with medical device, the tricorder, and sees his physiology is all wrong. He is not human, but a Klingon alien agent or spy. 788. Captain brings creatures near Klingons and he confesses to poisoning grain. The problem, he confessed too easily. And how did he poison grain? 789. Space station suspected Merchant as a spy since he had dealings with Klingons aliens before. Captain says they checked his background already. 790. Captain tells Klingons aliens they must leave space station right away. 791. Back on spaceship, the Enterprise, the officers got rid of all the creatures. Captain asked how they did that. They joined efforts. They beamed them all to the engine room of the Klingon aliens. Problem: how can transporter lock on thousands of little creatures everywhere on spaceship? 792. Merchant is guilty. He says he did not bring a dangerous creature. It has no teeth, and creatures died. The creatures did make them discover grain is poison and saved many lives and discovered Klingon alien spy. 793. Miracle. 793. Merchant is offered choice of 20 years in prison or to pick up all the creatures on the space station. It will take 17 years. He starts picking up dribble. 794. Another freighter takes the grain to the planet only a few days late. 795. Chief engineer had to be forced or coerced to leave his books and go on shore leave. It's a rare person. 796. Captain had very little respect for space station official and made it clear to it, so it made things worse. 797. First officer can do incredible calculations in his head. E.g. can't count the number of creatures, but by the fact that one came 3 days earlier, and rate of multiplication and amount of grain and volume of grain in compartment, he calculated population of creatures now existing. 798. Officers drank alcohol. Were they on duty or off duty, since some officers were there to watch the enemy? Can't drink on duty? 799. Officers did not have weapons from both spaceships. 800. Pets were allowed on space station. Should this have been approved first on a spaceship? Because it's page. Okay, it's page 80. Oh, I guess there's room for a little bit more, I guess. Okay, we'll continue a bit more, page 80. 801. Captain, communications officer, and navigator form away team to planet with automatic communication and irrigation system as routine check. 802. Away team goes to transporter room but disappears, and chief engineer doesn't know what happened. He advances first officer in command. He advises first officer in command. 803. First officer in command. He begins search for the planet but finds no sign of life on it. 804. First officer orders check of transporter system and it is perfect operating condition. 805. They search the whole planet system. They search the whole solar system that they are in, and surprisingly there is no sign of the away team. 806. Dilemma. They searched beyond transporter range yet still did not find them. How is that possible? 807. Chief medical officer asks if there is consciousness or atoms could have been dispersed in outer space, but first officer says no, their senses would have picked it up. 808. First officer stands to tell first officer that there is an iconic trace which came from a faraway star system to their spaceship. 809. First officer asks computer to analyze the signal, and the computer finds it of unknown type and origin. 810. First officer decides to follow the iconic trail and asks chief engineer if he can give him warp speed. 811. Chief engineer and the chief medical officer object that you can't leave that area, the area where the away team was lost, to go to a place beyond transporter range. 812. First officer in command says that he searched everywhere, here and there, and they are not here, and that he is following the only lead they have. 813. First officer says he is in command, and unless they want to go on mutiny, then he will decide. 814. They say, will he come back and look again here since he could have missed a place? He says yes. 815. Since approached by other officers since approval by other officers is important, chief engineer didn't want to leave the area, but in the end granted the commanding first officer the warp 6 he asked, and a bit more. 816. Officers still had doubts because the distance is so great, so how could they have gone there? 817. The away team finds itself on the planet surface and think that it is a transporter problem first, but the planet belongs to a tertiary system, 3 stars, so seems they left the old star system to a new one. 818. The away team is attacked by a handful of humanoids with primitive weapons and are captured but not really hurt. Why primitive? 819. The faces of the away team were rendered inoperative. 820. The away team hears the voices of providers, and they are not impressed with them and make bets on them. 821. The away team are told they will be trained and sold to highest bidders. Slavery, really. 822. Pain-giving collars are put on each member of the away team to ensure their obedience. 823. The away team is locked in separate rooms. Each member is given another slave of opposite sex. 824. Each member is given another slave of opposite sex to help them, train them, and care for their needs. Page 82. 825. When the guards feed the away team, then they knock out the slaves and try to escape. Their escape is stopped by chief slave who is just gives them great pain by their collars. 826. The away team is put in training. 827. The captain and his slave seem to find each other attractive. 828. His slave does not know what love is. When it is time for procreation, then a mate is selected for her. Captain says, where he comes from, you choose your own mate. There's no freedom. 829. Captain kisses slave and she likes it and wants to do it again. She never knew it could be like this. 830. Captain asks slave questions while they jog for training and a break. She says such questions are forbidden to be discussed and there's no freedom, but captain insists. 831. Slave girl says she provides care for their needs and the providers have no body. They once did. 832. The providers punish her through the color of pain just then. 833. Captain says punish him, not her. He is at fault. Is that compassion? Ask providers. 834. Both are unpunished since providers are impressed by this human. 835. Spaceship follows iconic trail to the end. Have one planet nearby. Page 83. Principle 836. First officer in command wishes to send an away team since detects humanoid life forms on planet, but suddenly systems on spaceship are inoperative except for life support. Providers did it. 837. Earlier, a slave was to be punished by being harmed by another slave, but they refused. 838. Communications officer refuses, so she takes place of slave for punishment, but captain says that the away team is his responsibility and so he takes her place. 839. Captain's hands are tied and mighty slave attacks him with a whip. 840. Eventually, captain gets his hand free and knocks the attacker, making him pass out. The providers are very impressed with him and make bets on him. 841. Captain and acting captain and crew on planet and on spaceship can hear each other now. 842. Captain explains what has happened. 843. Providers are impressed that spaceship crew managed to find the away team. 844. Captain tells providers to show themselves unless they are scared. 845. Captain is taken to the location of providers. They are just brains, no body, or something like it. They once had bodies, but they didn't need them as their intellectual powers grew. 846. There was a power source nearby, shielded because they lived 1,000 miles below surface. 847. The captain argues with these providers that they waste their lives and accomplish nothing. 848. They say they need the competitions to help them have some joy in their lives. 849. Captain says these slaves are capable of so much more. 850. Providers say they are inferior race and they care for them and they cannot be set free to look after themselves. I think I began 350, now it's 8, so that means I finished about 500 principles. 851. Captain says humans have helped primitive civilizations before with great success and not providers saying they can't do what humans did. 852, providers says, is that a challenge, a bet? Captains is told they will wager a lot of money. 853, captain says he has no use for their money and the stakes should be high. Let his crew fight an equal number of slaves, and if they win, then they will be set free. Otherwise, they will all become slaves and fight in the arena as providers desire. 854. Providers agree, except only captain will fight in arena for bed, and he will fight against 3 other slaves. Captain finds it unfair, but providers tell him it is fair since the alternative is death. 855. So captain is put in arena against 3 slaves. If one slave is injured, then he is replaced. Must kill him to have him or her removed. 856. Captain throws weapon and kills most powerful slave first. Page 85. 857. Principle. The second slave shows spear. The second slave throws spear at captain, but he ducks and it kills second slave. 858. Captain hurts third slave, last one, so he is replaced with new slave, the woman who was close to him. 859. They like each other, but must fight to the death. 860. They hesitate, but finally captain captures her with a knife at her throat and hesitates. She could have killed him before also, it seemed, but she couldn't. She liked him. 861. She surrenders. Problem. It was supposed to be a fight to the death, and he lets her go. 862. Crew on bridge were watching this battle. 863. Providers accepted defeat and let away team and spaceship crew leave and free the slaves and will train them. Regrettably, they said. 864. Slave girl wanted to go with the captain, but he said that he can't. This is so much that she has. There is so much that she must learn first. 865. Providers kept their promise, perhaps because they were powerful gamblers, and their word to give payment is the value that they must have. 866. Captain warned providers before that Starfleet will be warned, and so they should let them go since they can't battle whole of Starfleet. Problem, it seems that they can. And anyway, they say the spaceship communication system has been disrupted, so crew cannot contact Starfleet. 867. Captain says love is the greatest thing on the planet he comes from. 868. Superior beings treated superior beings treat inferior humanoids as we treat inferior beings or other races or us or also animals? Page 86. 869. Captain really didn't seem bothered that he had to kill other innocent people to save himself and his crew and other slaves, even if he spared one he loves, after he offered to take punishment for another person. Okay, 870. Seems unlikely that such powerful and intelligent beings would seek enjoyment in watching humanoids fight and bet on who will win. But people do similar betting on animals in dog races, horse races. Can even have animals fight each other. Sports put people to fight each other in civilized way, but often results in fights among players and among fans. But also have boxing sports where men fight each other violently, and many people pay to see it, and bet on one of the boxes attracts many people. Okay, I think it's possible. I think the tape maybe have ended over here. Okay, now 871. Communication may be monitored by enemy, and they break code if it's encrypted. 872. Theory. Prime directive. Since the technology developed too quickly, our minds did not, so we almost destroyed ourselves. So don't want the same to happen elsewhere. 873. Paradox of prime directive. Have two communities. Another superior race breaks prime directive since they don't care about such a law. So planet is contaminated. Must you break your prime directive and help the other side? Okay, 87, Star Trek, the original series, 2265, principle 874. Solution to paradox is to provide the other side with same technology to have a balance again. Problem is, alien helps other side more than it keeps repeating over and over. Nothing else you can do, otherwise the planet will not survive. 875, maybe member of the community, its leader refuses to fight or to kill. 876, his wife tells him he must fight or they will die. 877, his wife knows about beings from the stars and wants the best powers possible to make her husband truly great. 878, wife abandons her husband and goes to enemy to show them new technology she stole from captain. 879, wife approaches enemy to be guided to new leader, perhaps since he is a greater warrior. She tries to defect. 880, leader sees his wife flirting with captain. She drugs captain by making him smell a flower. 881, leader has a gun and almost shoots her dead but can't, or kills his friend, the captain. 882, group of enemies receives the other leader's wife and don't believe her. They just try to have sex with her, but she resists. 883, captain realizes